Hello, Legion. One to gain. Campus Marcius was stolen. Hear its name. Proclaim. Campus Marcius was revealed. The ancient republic was revealed. Most probably. Demonstrably. This is not complicated, but just extensive. And what's claiming other is evidence also recorded. Various ways that are capable of by correlation natures. Actual science to discern this. As a science /s, where and how the identity of the science is in all things at once, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. How it is one identity, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that as the per science, as the body of forever, as the identity of the body of forever, the body as bigger than and lesser than, where and how more and more forever nature is being made. The body of forever as an identity of volume, as volume science. Now see, they have the theory of relativity, and they have the theory of volume science, volume theory. Offensively, worse than roles obfuscated as victims, but as reactions and events that are invested like that because of the method used from semi-ancient times since before modern religions. What had been revealed naturally before tactically contained, criminally foreign influenced sciences and victim roles, with them abridged identity to the ground, relationships to our quality of fact treatment nature as a value/value progression, as a quality of diffusion life, unceasingly. So where and how, for example, all the fibers of a tree that are connecting the wood, all the cells of our bodies, all the cells of bodies of life, no body of value discernment. This is where we are temporary positive, where also is a gaining identity of volume as invisible but still discernible. Increasing identity of volume that the body of forever nature is, making more of itself, self-generating. And now see, this is an ancient science that used God as an algebraic variable in relationship to this identity, invisible but still distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous identity of relationship to itself, and to 5 bonded values that are simultaneously 5 bonded identities of value progression that are simultaneously the value of that, simultaneously increasing. This is part of what the Trinity is about, through cipher and decipher simultaneous. This is because all identity ground locations, all the sciences were already now defended. In nations individually grouped it together, forced defending identities, suits and ties, the foundations of it before that. Alternatives, all victims, all shock and awe, even we're not victims. Defending science is defending identity other than the science by why and how we are individual, grouped, and species identity of volume. How those 3 physical volumes are manifest. I tell it best, boxing. From the smallest individual identity of value progression. It has 2 points of 2 identities of possession that are also simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously within as itself. In the range of it's ourself that can be discerned. Actually, see, we have the connected revelations of our species that came from before criminally foreign influenced sciences, and victim shock and awe rolls with it. And as a fact-cheating nature, completely fact-cheating nature, predicate acts delivery system method. I am not a lawyer, not a police form, not a criminal. Forgiveness is for that and how our obligations are to demonstrate the recorded human fact-cheating nature, breaching organized crime method, using each modern nation individually grouped and together. Self-defended as what can only self-value. The causes of and roles of lie progressions covered up from all formal database and fact-cheating nature, conviction nature, opinion nature, positions. Further and further back to all identity ground locations, areas, and states. In that most overtly and simultaneously, insidiously, as the subject of American history, in relationship to the sabotage of the long words and of the short words of our species, and of our quality of fact-cheating nature, and of freedom, and of free speech, obviously, and of religion, to have a quality of fact-cheating nature to speak about and to be capable of speaking about without being in collusion with it, needing everyone to blame other things other than yourselves to keep defensive of that. All identities of the identity of negative value nature progression reliant is upon what is we use as everyone remotely since before electronic definitions of remote in relation to the database, our database relationships. Relationship to everyone saying, well, I'm just this type of expert. Originally and still, it is every modern nation individually grouped together. They have types of experts. As victims, great people help counter the bad things, but there are also many ways, simultaneously, insidiously, and simultaneously, misprisioning identities and relationships as victims, facilitated need to perpetually obfuscate all that is actually capable of each age of fact-cheating nature. And they have a method to this to make it self-value. And they effectively did it through generations, insidiously. And then it uses the standing identity of volume, self-valued, because this is identity science. And I would say, what pretends other? So we have a quality of fact-cheating nature with sequence shifts that are juxtaposed with simultaneously transcript fabrications, because hundreds of nations at once. Also, they're reliant upon positive and negative treatments in collusion with as all in misprision. Not just intercamp branches of government before that, while them out the branch of government when they were still overtly colonized, which is even after our founders' births, that was still entrenched, north and south, roles with slavery, roles with the fact-cheating nature, organized crime, methods and motivations and roles of the identity of negative value nature progression, of the identity of value/value progression. That is actually why we are actually and how we are actually discerned as individual grouped areas, group sexes, group ages, locations, physical culture, and simultaneously the Trinity completed the species body of volume. Simultaneously bonded and not. Each is an individual complete. But we are all this way simultaneously semi-nature. And that is simultaneously semi-nature everyone. To what? What we could study per science. We're not supposed to agree on the name. Because of the individual group and stuff, that identity is inseparable from all things. Bach sings the order of the finite itself. the smallest things, the order they have that in conjunction with this. This is they have has it is in demonstration that there are two natures of possession, as all things at the same time correlation reveals. Exceptions and exception natures are in demonstration of such too. So this maintains an identity, the identity of negative value nature progression, that is simultaneously the Earth's value through our little species too long. Length of Hadith, force-based nature transfer. Science of the ancients revealed this, is demonstrable. English was revealed to teach this. For example, that's why the bottom of the Z points away from the A. And that's why the top of the Z points towards the A. This is about this one identity of volume. Everything is at once, individually together, grouped and together. And demonstration of one identity of value progression's identity of relationship to itself and the increasing value /S of that, which simultaneous observation of reveals how to cause evolution's fruits and gifts and means, an order of revelations, of connected revelations that connect everywhere at once. Boxings to campus dunce with stolen name. Forgiveness is for everyone that is victim predators. Recorded for this method. Forgiveness is so you can listen without pretending it's personal. This is what is actually recorded. They have everything has been manifested self-valued so long because they had to pretend other. Because individually grouped and together. We have the World Trade Center. Other nations have the equivalent. Hundreds of nations, A1 through Z, whatever. Now they had to make, in the chaos, they had this breaching organized crime method. I'm not a lawyer, not police form, not criminal. Don't forget, it's evidence of that and how originally instilled. Each identity of the scientists, stewards, were roles with needing to hurt and roles self-valuing hurt. Each age of correlation nature is actually capable means of correlation nature. And how facilitated to juxtapose actual, apparent, and semi-apparent means, but that part of the organized crime method that has been and is preventing free speech, true sequence, encounters to interbranch evidence fabrication roles with hundreds of nations at once, and specifically in relationship to where and how, if you use this correlation nature, if you use truth, they are calling people, they're pretending passions and emotions against other people's names. A whole bunch of people on a whole bunch of different ways. Not honestly. And not to hurt people's feelings. And whereas and how even with the exceptions of that are also in demonstration of this. But people aren't following mandated law. And they've been putting fake things in databases. So they need to pretend that people are speaking about what happens bad to them with locations, areas, states, and interbranch and intercampuses, and on off all identity of industries individually grouped and together. All victims used remotely. Defenses of that as fact-cheating nature, manifest as criminal and seditious nature, propagated, self-value, to maintain manifest what can't defend. That and not self-value roles with what really bonds and keeps furthered the overt criminal enterprises, known and unknown, and how unknown, self-value, recorded. For example, this is why it is recorded, even the stewards of the religions who give their lives to them, they self-value obfuscation of their roles with the branches of government and with intercampuses, who you know, not what you know. When someone tries to use logic with no criminal foreign influences. And this is weird how they've been lying about how they perceive people like me when I speak on YouTube, when people speak in real life. Because they've been using interbranch locations originally and still in collusion with and as that organized crime method, worse than war crimes, but a simple organized crime method that forced slavery with colors, that forced everyone to blame it on other things other than themselves, and forced them to need to, and to invest them needing to, not for their apparent reasons. Because this is an infrastructure of human fact-keeping nature that is only capable of having nature demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, to our correlation nature by really how the identity of the ground, its identity of relationship to itself, and its ties to our fact-keeping nature. We don't have freedom of religion because we aren't allowed to counter interbranch forging names, switching names also with private and overt criminal enterprises and people legitimately mentally sick and the people for care for them and the family members of those old people recorded in collusion with themselves before they get caught. This is not by accident. This is for a method that is all the fake sides of types of education across the species body of volume. Their defenses of all of self-value, tactically, criminally re-engineered. Sciences not going by evolution's fruits and gifts, but method, means. Since before cars, evidence is the pathology of infrastructure that was forced with slavery laws, even against our founding parents. They juxtaposed color and worse roles with it because this is across the globe. The pathology of infrastructure was forced by this semi-ancient breaching method that propagated everyone to roles with and as an identity of negative value nature progression, as the devil. Now this is per science. This is about an archetypal criminal enterprise. Even if that was not true, it is about this breaching method. So it is true. And it was that breaching method that forced those laws, not anything other than that. I mean, that for example, is how we're going to describe it. For example, the predicate acts. We're going to describe slavery, all the predicate acts involved with it. We're going to make proper descriptions of victims and of predators, because everyone stayed and stays victim predators. Even interbranch still rolls with the worst things that happens with the area because it's all tied to the life progressions. It's all tied to the roles with a method that no one realized how they were self-valuing it. For example, they are recorded through time. Each age of fact-keeping nature on off campuses, making confessions in the suburbs and in the cities, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, and simultaneously. And that is evidence. And the making confessions about their roles with organized crime. Not only are they making their confessions about organized crime and simultaneous pretending other, with misprision roles, with actually recorded needs to cover up life progressions legitimately juxtaposed with one's illegitimate originally still, per the sophistication of this method that was here since before sophistication across the globe of suits and tie nations. With self-valued roles, with since before cars, involve factory infrastructure, identity of the ground, relationship to our quality of fact, cheap nature designed. Be victims, with nature demonstrating negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. See, now we have fact cheap nature conformed, not legitimately, while victim all victim valuing our not legitimately. And we have this to counter, but we have to understand it this way. In relationship to that recorded, where and how the surface values of the Constitution are being prevented free speech, and where and how the branches of government, if we try to use logic that demonstrates this, they simultaneously attach us to fake words, and or they attach our words and truths that are real also simultaneously to more and more that what they use for lies. And now the prisons and I have no criminal record. There are Interbranch, Connecticut, since I was a kid, involved spreading lies, because this is also not just interconnected. This is all that was progressed. That was not just propagated. It is in a method that maintains that self-cultivated, victims only capable of defending roles, with reactions to that maintained specifically effectively to maintain a location, area, and state. Self-valuing, the obfuscation of the identity of the ground relationship to itself that causes evolution's fruits and gifts and means. Says why individually grouped and together, not one nation could afford to counter, could fathom affording it. What we were forced to play the pathology of as shock and awe. No. Then they invested everyone to have to fear that polarity-wise. No. Shock and awe. So, for the species body of volume, this is how we could take away a whole bunch of threats by allowing people to pull back from what fact cheap nature rely upon is needing to have people, strangers, be able to walk up to strangers and make statements of each with each age of fact cheap nature. It's because of how the nature of volume we are as this species of volume is tactically prevented free speech if you're not using and entertaining logic that is criminally foreign influenced. For example, there are truths that we need to have. Experts on things. But such truths are employed by this fact cheap nature organized crime method to maintain all victim roles with where and how truths are being used for lies. And overt identity thefts. Overt methods, overt and simultaneously insidiously, as also recorded, ties back to misprision identity of ground locations all. A branch of the government all. Identity of sense and sensibilities of all. Identity of negative value nature progression. Of negative value nature progression, self-value. Every time that people make opinions and speak about what slavery is about, shock and awe. It's about this organized crime method. It's about this organized crime method with the bar itself, with lawyers themselves. Everyone has victim predators as that. shock and awe, not having fathomed how this identity of value slash value progression was going to make everyone force and value fake sides of correlation nature in collusion with each age of fact-cheating nature against itself, self-value, them simultaneously pretending other. For example, all kinds of bad things are relevant to where and how it is recorded evidence is that and how mandated laws is forbid, where and how the branches of government, a whole bunch of nations, overt criminal enterprises specifically because are most furthered to keep themselves valued by the branches of government, most roles with most furthering them. To keep themselves, they have to hide lie progressions tied to their value treatments of each identity, ground, location, and science, let alone ourselves. And that was all that was to would hurt them, would hurt their parents. This doesn't leave even kings and pharaohs, even queens. How could they have free speech if all locations, areas, and states are self-valued, criminally foreign influence? Each modern nation individually grouped together, forced to share policing, and to hide that too, demonstrably. They have criminal readings of statutes here and there. They are roles delaying free speech. See, this is all that is really too. I think that's New Britain Avenue and Route 3. I don't know what it is with that, but that was tied to foreign and domestic, a whole bunch of nations associated with people involved with various police forms, foreign and domestic, and overt criminal enterprise, who are involved with on and off campuses, acting and uses of that acting tied to the illusions they've been pretending into databases. That their roles with slanders and identity crimes that simultaneously self-valued are self-valued roles with that which kept and keeps each branch of government inter-military criminally foreign influence, inter-private industries criminally foreign influence, breaching screens, fake patriotism, where and as and how it counts, where and as and how we are fact-cheating nature, where and as and how the surface values of the Constitution can't be defended by people using their identities to pretend someone slighted their identity and then throw them into the jails. Also involved with criminal foreign influence on them and their family members. This keeps everyone victims, speaking through others. All what they call intelligence is criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. They had obligations, our organized crime countering bodies, to explain America and what slavery was about. That they worse than don't just they overtly don't fulfill, and they simultaneously insidiously do, and that's simultaneously self-value. Self-value our roles as victims, blaming on other things other than themselves, where and as and how the people hurt most and where they're going to react. Every point of our value / value progression is employed. No one fathomed the breaching method. Even tribes A through Z, they made them blame other things other than themselves because they took away their education. Obviously, how could they learn properly and advance what the ancients know when there's all this craziness on them? What do you think those crazy laws were about? The same see, this is a game where they have sides forced because they have intercultural police forms, suits and ties, counters to it that are in collusion, individually grouped together, forced now to an identity that can't afford the free speech of and the logic of the identity of volume we are. So it pretends passions and emotions, pretends lies about their interpretation of other people's behavior. And when you sustain that, you sustain uses of that. And they make people blame other things other than themselves and or wrongly, and or they just, if they do it right, they just attach you to fake recorded things, even what is actually recorded as other. So then they use the identity of victims, which AT&T is. Of all that associated, many from my town associated that I don't even know. I just know because it's recorded. They have involvements with people at each campus I went to who have connections to the family members of federal criminals, and of a former director of the FBI in a 2006 case, and leading up to that, involved with a pattern of predicate acts, also leading up to the Trade Center with military families also, and sequence shifts, and roles with natures of human trafficking that have nothing to do with human trafficking apparently, but simply they've been attaching me and other people to fake locations, fake ties to officers, fake words with officers, switching arresting officers' names, criminal uses of police equipment, roles with this with medical families, foreign and domestic, that I haven't met, and other recorded involved in collusion with untimely deaths and with uses of those locations for that, which has on-off campuses of each age and nature and location evolved through time, through real juxtaposed, legitimate and illegitimate combined, and uses of that, completely illegitimate, combined. Uses of where and how each modern nation never had, and perpetually never has, integrity. Because we have all investigations, investigators, and uses of the identities of our organized crime countering bodies as uses that and as qualities of fact-cheating nature, defenses that can't afford fact-cheating nature that is using what is true always, not denying exceptions and not denying exception nature, because that's what correlation nature does. And so we have criminally foreign influenced roles with identity crimes that our branches of government are victims roles with, but they're also victim predator roles with. They also have physical delusions juxtaposed with criminally foreign influenced, not just sequence treatments, premises treatments, active, progressive, and identity thefts, frauds, and worse roles. That can't simultaneously defend what it calls positive and negative. See, the perfect world is a phrase, for example, individually grouped and together, associated with the distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous methods of criminal influence over, and styles of roles, styles of logic roles, and of sequence treatment roles, identity treatment roles, associated with this breaching organized crime method that forced the slavery of America's founding parents. Now we also have entrenched breaching criminally foreign influence and delusions wrought people pretending passions and emotions dishonestly, for pretending opinions dishonestly. For example, I forgot what I was going to say. In other words, there is simple logic. There are the long words and the short words of our species forbid their speech. So one must teach. So English was revealed, but by as a science using about how and why we are an identity of volume the way we are. This is better than music theory. And then it is theory. This is why and how the notes of music are bonded individually, grouped and together. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. Latido, Latino. I saw somewhere on YouTube. I don't want to say it, so but then I have to put the link. Wink, wink. So people say you can't learn on YouTube. Just figure out one thing. You can learn on YouTube the instrument. You just have to practice every day. Fender play. I think that's Fender tells you that. There's like a thing that'll tell you. You know, there are all kinds of things online on people. You could learn on YouTube. You just have to practice. And those notes repeat. So it's if you understand it this way, can many pray, sayings. English was revealed to teach these things. Then the letters of the English alphabet are bonded individually, grouped in together by what is an identity of relationship to all parts of English grammar, individually grouped in together as an increasing identity of volume, invisible but still discernible, as an increasingly positive or negative relationship to itself, as the identity of correlation, nature, or trinity. For example, inherent, active, and progressive simultaneously, bonded, and by and as, but as the quality of diffusion, positive or negative, while as automatically positive. The identity of the body of forever, bigger than, and simultaneously smaller than, A through Z. Where and how, that is simultaneously also not true, in relationship to how. Part of the complete identity of space is simultaneously pushed into existence, and part of the identity of existence, its complete identity, is pushed into a complete identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that simultaneously fills in the increasing value of space, originally still a complete identity, which is this identity, which is not only onto, while as these three identities of volume, where its body of volume, its identity of volume, its identity of relationship to itself, its volume's relationship to itself. When I say volume science, and the value of that. So, for example, there are various natures of courts, and as victims, and police forms as victims, and intermilitary as victims, and Department of Transportation, the Department of Motor Vehicles. As victims, everyone relies on the other expert. State police. See this? How could you know this? You're not. I'm not police from that interbranch. I'm not. I'm an expert on the nature of English grammar, and the nature is identity of volume. And evidences of this are when people deny it. So this is why it's essential to note when there are sequence shifts, to note where and how mandated law is not followed, to note where and how some of the people with some of the sickest roles with abuses of each age of fact tribute nature standardized into and as that value progression, the actual causes manifest with statistics. It's per a method that also has those statistics, location, all locations, victim, predators. No one fathomed this world with how, because no one fathomed how our fact tribute nature Was is recorded forbid the simultaneous value of the simultaneous value slash value progressions of the surface values of the Constitution. Free speech. How can we have free speech when interbranch are recorded as they are, attaching us to fake words, fake locations through our entire lifetimes, putting us in quotations, putting things in databases, uses of acting lies tied to that, act theater tied to that, on off campuses, timed exploitations of our value slash value progression, keeping a whole bunch of nations defenses and fights individually grouped and together, and we're the only peaceful locations. Where how that is in collusion where they're preventing free speech, demonstration of their identities. For example, with Wethersfield campuses in the past, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with all these nations at the corner of the Britain Avenue and Route 3 with Interbranch 4, and this is how you should talk about it. The WFSB is involved with them with wire crimes and databases. And if we ask together, we could have them admit it. They pretend, they use crime methods, pretend they don't realize they don't see the evidences. But they know they recorded those evidences. They attach me to fake words, fake locations, fake ties to people I never had a conversation with, never had anything to do with in my life, and fake natures of relationship to other people, and locations with other people. And were they designed all kinds of predicate acts roles with mail crimes, wire crimes, other natures of organized crime. Not just about what they admit overtly. See, these are people with private schools that walk by you, they you know, they're taking people to fake sequence relationships. They're lying about what is actually recorded, and they already did that in cases. So now they can't afford to have people with free speech. That is an outcome that uses modern nations, locations, areas, states, campuses into private database relationship stewards. Everyone speaking for everyone. Everyone kept needing to hide lie progressions, needing to everyone's perception. So they have men and women associated with, I don't know the names of them, but they know my name, who are involved with interbranch and interreligious spots, intermilitary, and such like that. And then it's a sustained way, so they bring in more and more. Then they bring their family members. They have to pretend all these passions, emotions, because they're strangers. They want to play, oh, well, let's debate that. That's what courts are for. See, these courts are recorded involved with this, simultaneously with the media at the same time. Catch me, little kids, others through time to fake locations. As an adult, they attach me to fake locations too. They lied about me as a past. Pretend I had ties to doctors as a kid. Those same doctors, as an adult, were recorded involved with Kevin Dillon, a Sean Dillon, Anna Dillon. Confessed and recorded and demonstrated by a whole bunch of people tied to them. Involved with crime roles with untimely deaths on and off Trinity College. And their roles with on and off of principal child offender campuses that were forcing other natures of organized crime and more sexually themed crimes. With the people also further, like two Mendez police. Also on and off the Wethersfield Police Department. Attached me to a fake conversation, put me in quotes, crimes with police equipment with two Mendez police. Also, on and off the New Britain Superior Court. Federal crimes, predicate acts roles. When I was a kid, I never had a class with them. There were roles with putting me into fake locations. And there were roles with criminal uses of the sense and sensibilities of the stewards of the campuses. That they're forced to collusion with interbranch and foreign and collusion with the databases stacking what is actually recorded in there. So they know no one's looking in those things. And they've been stacking that, acting in relationships like how they're, this breaching organized crime method knew that their sophistication would stay this. This is what is actually recorded. When you discern all of that is discernible for how and why they prevent mandated law and lie about the substance of people on Facebook and YouTube and have roles with fake Facebook pages and fake YouTube pages pretending to be me and people tied to me in all kinds of different ways. And to other people they do this too. Not for the reasons known and unrealized alone, for unfathomed, but discernible actually. Actually. It is very simple to discern the criminal foreign influences of when worse than criminal incompetence, shock and awe, identities of negative value nature progression, pretending other when they make opinions about color. In the back of their minds, not legitimately the things they blame it on, like the landscape theater overt on mass people, so there's no one's fault, so we blame it on other. That's a breaching method employed self-valued by victims. Well, that's the way the world is, perfect world. Inclusion, right? Private opinions, overt criminal enterprises, the branches of government, the science is abridged. That's a bridged constitution. Ground, identity of the ground has a quality of our fact-treating nature that is native pure. And that's forsaken. So then everywhere it is, so that has nothing to do with who's native or married. That's even worse. That's even worse. But we have to be able to have anyone be able to speak for what is native true. And which is identity of the ground, relationship to itself. It means a value system that is at least allowed to speak about the one that is actually why we are individual, grouped, and together. Which has to make words, and long words and short words, and value treatments using what